International travel is taking a hit, not just in the United States, but just overall travel and tourism demand is shaky at the moment following the announcement of US tariffs this past week, reciprocal tariffs on more than 90 countries, plus strict immigration policies out of the Trump administration. All of this uncertainty and unpredictability is making a lot of people nervous who were otherwise going to travel. So I want to dig into that today because I just wrote a newsletter about it and I want to share with you what I know, what I've heard. Let's dig into it. Hey guys, so this week I wrote a travel update newsletter for Bloomberg Pursuits, which is my team, and I'm on the travel team over there. And what we do is constantly pour over data and look at what is really happening. And it's very, it's shifting very rapidly, as you know. Everyone's feeling kind of nervous. Now, I'm going to look at some of my notes to give you accurate statistics so that I don't mess anything up. American consumers are not feeling very confident, and we're seeing this in their choices to travel. Basically, what we're hearing from travel advisors and executives is that consumers are increasingly choosing to not go overseas, and they're choosing to do some backyard travel instead. Now, obviously, that's probably because of the shaky economic outlook right now. People are seeing their 401ks go down. They're also just not confident that they're going to be welcome as Americans abroad. So they're choosing to increasingly stick around and stay local. And actually, there's a survey even that was done, a flash poll by MMGY, a travel marketing firm, that shows that at least a quarter or more, maybe a third, choose to stay home, stick to backyard travel, and about close to that are choosing to travel by another mode of transportation that isn't flying. So most likely, a lot more people are going to be road tripping this summer and beyond. Another set of people in America who are staying home and sticking to backyard travel are green card holders, because of the stories we've heard of some of the folks being detained at the border and being scrutinized, and some cases, I think, even being given a form so that they voluntarily give up their residency. I don't really have the full details on why these people were picked on, but there's a general sense that it could happen to you even if you're a lawful permanent resident. In fact, recently there was a question presented to Marco Rubio, Secretary of State for the United States, in Jamaica. He was visiting Jamaica, and one of the journalists asked him about Jamaicans who are green card holders but are now afraid of even traveling back to Jamaica. Should that be seen as something that they shouldn't be doing? And they're worried about what would happen when they come back to the border. So that's definitely creating a chill effect as well. And I don't know, are you one of those green card holders who's worried about traveling abroad? Let me know in the comments. Here's another thing. Inbound international travel to the United States is taking a hit. I'm sure you've heard Canadians are just not having any particular desire to come to the United States. And there's been a huge drop, I think about right now, 30% compared to this time last year. Canadians spend a lot of time in warm destinations on the West Coast of the United States, the winterbird destinations, and those businesses in places like Palm Springs, California, just one example out of many, are experiencing basically a huge hit. The hotels are not as booked with Canadians. They bring a lot of money into the community because they stay long term as winterbirds, they spend local, etc. So Palm Springs even did a new marketing campaign where they, all over their downtown, they put like these red banners that say "We love Canadians" to convince people to come, and that the sentiment is it's not the same everywhere in the United States. Now, more statistics from Canada, the government of Canada, they say that the number of Canadians that are returning from the US by car last month in March 2025 went down by 32%. That's huge, 32% fewer driving Canadians into the US. That is an increase over a drop of 23% in February. It's the third month of decline for Canadian car trips in the US. Now, you know that Canada and US have these border towns that, people have family across the border, but not just that, there's also tourism across the border, Niagara Falls, etc. All of that is taking a hit. Transatlantic routes are being slashed. Various major carriers, including United has said that it's slashing routes between, let's say, Dulles Airport in Washington and Canada. We're also seeing Air France say that they are seeing softened demand for international. So these transatlantic routes are getting hit. And as a result, Air France said that it was Actually, Air France said that it was seeing softer demand in their economy cabins. So the premium was holding steady. So obviously people with money are still traveling and they feel secure in their situation. The economy cabins, however, are not filling up and they're seeing empty seats, which means that you should look out because perhaps finally in the next few weeks, we're going to see a dip in the cost of international airfare and economy on Air France and possibly maybe other airlines in the next few months if the uncertainty continues. Another thing we're seeing, Jeff, that was very interesting is actually some Caribbean destinations are also experiencing a slump. Now you have to remember that the United States is a major source market for tourists, and so when US consumers don't feel as confident in their economic position or in what is going on in the economy in the United States and they feel like there's a recession coming, they're obviously going to tighten their belts. They're going to rethink those lavish trips and they're going to rethink going overseas. Now, the Caribbean is very close to the United States. It's, one of our favorite, as Americans, one of our favorite destinations and regions. And so there's a slump there happening with some of the islands. In fact, the Caribbean Tourism Organization shared their March 2025 statistics, and they see a decline for at least 5 Caribbean islands in March year over year. Here's what is even more interesting. I spoke to an executive at a major travel advisor network who told me that the summer demand is holding steady for the Caribbean out of the United States, except for 2 destinations. And those 2 are the Dominican Republic and St. Bart's. So I'll be digging into that more into upcoming stories, and my next update will probably be about that and looking at what is happening in the Dominican Republic. Is demand sort of plateauing or is it declining? And what does it mean? Personally, I think it's far too soon to make, pessimistic projections. I do think that we are in a very uncertain, unpredictable time. I mean, I'm telling you these updates now. Next week, the statistics could be completely different. And next week, our 401ks may also tumble again. Hopefully not. I'm trying not to look at it obsessively. But here's my advice is to really rethink about what your priorities are. Shore up your status. If you're doing fine, you're doing fine. But if you're not, then pause those trips and rethink where you're going, rethink how you're spending and save it maybe for when things are more certain. But from what we can see, enough people are feeling uncertain that international travel is softening. And for airlines to pull their predictions for the year, their outlook for the year is significant. So brace yourself, guys. I think the whole travel tourism industry is bracing itself. Another thing I want to mention is that if you are traveling, you may well expect increased prices on food, depending on whether you're eating imported or not. Even in the United States, if you do backyard travel, you might see more expensive prices, say in Maine. I had an executive from the World Travel and Tourism Council, the CEO of WTTC. She gave me an example, which was quite good, that if you're going to Maine and you're having lobster, it's possible that it's going to be much more expensive when you're dining out because the majority of the lobster from Maine is sent to Canada to be processed and then it's brought back. So imagine, right? Slap on the tariffs. You're going to be the one ending up paying for that. So there are large changes that we don't know yet how it's going to impact tourism and what we spend when we're in these different places here or abroad. But you can bet that it's going to be a bit more expensive if this continues. And again, if the unpredictability continues, we might just see what we saw in 2020, which is people sticking to their backyards. By the way, it's not just Americans that are increasingly choosing to stay in the backyards. In a survey from Quantum Metric, 50% of surveyed UK residents, 50% said they plan to stick to backyard travel this year. So we're in turmoil, guys, and the whole travel and tourism industry is bracing itself, and I'm super busy. I've had a crazy week just keeping up with all of this. But let me know what you think. Are you a Canadian who's not coming to the US and plan to continue doing so? Are you someone who just travels because they have their economic status, solidified and you're not worried about it? From anywhere around the world, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Sometimes it even informs my stories. So thanks for listening. And I want to wrap up not least by sending my condolences, and truly my heart goes out to everyone in Dominican Republic because literally everyone has been impacted by the tragedy at Jet Set Nightclub. And I've been following very closely since it happened. I've been to Jet Set. I have it in my book, even in my Dominican Republic guidebook. And it's a cultural institution, but more so the way that it happened and who it happened to, more than 200 people. I just truly, I still, my head can't like I can't wrap my head around it. And my heart goes out to the average Dominican who's been impacted by this, their families, people who've been left without their husbands and their kids or their brothers. It's just like unfathomable. And I share the anger. I just want to say that I share the anger behind it. And what happened was obviously you can see that it was negligence. And I mean, I'm going to follow it closely with a follow-up video at some point. I'm going to also share a link below that you can donate to if you'd like to help the victims of this horrible and totally avoidable tragedy. Thank you so much. And I'll talk to you next time, guys. Hang in there.